All right, folks, welcome everyone to our financial aid award letter night. My name is Heidi Levitt, and I'm the Director of Counseling here at Sanborn. At this point, I would imagine most of you know me and have seen me on several of these presentations. And this is the one that everyone's waiting for because everyone's excited to find out how are we going to finance those big dreams and those big goals that all of our kids have. So I am excited to have Matt Azero here tonight with us. Matt is our representative who works with NEEF over in Concord. NEEF is our go-to agency for when we have any families who have any financial aid questions. As school counselors, financial aid is not, we know a little bit, enough to be dangerous. So that's why we send folks over to NEEF, because we are certainly not the experts in giving out financial advice. And honestly, it's uncomfortable for us to know families' financial situations in that much detail. So it's best for us to just have you work with a private counselor over at NEEF. And I'm sure Matt will talk with you about how to access their services and what kind of supports that they can provide for you. So I am going to turn it over to Matt. He can introduce himself and then he's going to be sharing his screen. For those of you who may have not participated in these presentations before, we do have the chat available on YouTube. I am monitoring the chat for any questions, and Matt's going to stop his presentation periodically and check in for any questions that we may have. So I will make sure that he is made aware of any of those questions or concerns that you may have. So Matt, I will turn it over to you.
All righty. Thank you very much for having me tonight, Heidi. I do appreciate it. And like Heidi said, my name's Matt Azero, and I'm from the Center for College Planning at the New Hampshire Higher Educational Assistance Foundation Network. All right, so let me share my screen so we can get started with the presentation. So tonight's presentation is Paying for College 101, Understanding Financial Aid Awards and Different Kinds of Financing Options. So as we jump in, like Heidi said, I will periodically stop and answer questions. So if you have them, please just put them in the chat box and she can tell me when we make those appropriate pauses in the presentation. So to begin with, we're going to talk about what is the Financial Aid Award. Okay, so quite basically, it's an offer, a financial aid offer that includes federal and institutional aid that a school will give the students via mail, email, once that they have completed all of the financial aid paperwork and forms that is required by the college or university. So sometimes I know I was working with a student the other day who never, for a specific school, he did not submit his CSS profile, so they didn't give him a financial aid package and so on and so forth. So please make sure to complete all work that those schools want for financial aid forms and so on and so forth. So then it's, what do we do with those? Well, we take a look at each one and determine how much it is going to cost to go to that school for 1 year and 1 year only. We always say we like to sit down. We talk about comparing cost because college is a tremendous cost. So comparing those different financial aid awards, which can look vastly different in those packages and how they're wording, because the colleges are nice enough to make everyone pretty for their school, but things don't match, wording doesn't match. So they can get quite confusing. So it is always good to compare, ask questions of us, myself, please, at the Center for College Planning, before you make any kind of decisions if you're not sure. Because like I said, the financial aid award packages the wording can be quite different in each package and could mean the exact same thing in each package, but just be said differently. Also, just to let you know that I forgot to state, any of the services that I provide from the Center for College Planning are free to you and your children, all New Hampshire residents. It's a free service, so please, I always say, please take advantage of me. I like meeting with families and going through and helping you out and basically giving you some good advice on forms, financial aid award packages, as well as, for the younger kids, the junior college planning nights, that sort of thing, or filling out the FAFSA. We also do fill out the FAFSA with students who've graduated high school. So we do what's called FAFSA renewals. So next year in the springtime, late winter, really, when your child's in school, you're going to still have to do a FAFSA renewal because all these things happen every single year, and go from there. So please don't hesitate to get help from us. All right. So here are some 4 simple steps in understanding your financial aid award. So step 1, boom. Do you see the word grant? Big things to key on, and you'll hear me if you're taking notes throughout the presentation. There's some very specific things that I key on. One would be the word grant. The reason is basically grants are free money that does not need to be paid back. Now, at the federal government level, there's what's called a Pell Grant. Okay, that's money that's based on need, but that's based on need from your FAFSA when you fill that out, and you could see if you're eligible for a Pell Grant. Colleges also have numerous different types of grants, and those would also be based on need. And each individual college could have different kinds of grants available. Remember, as I said before, grants, money does not need to be paid back. And every year you will refile your FAFSA, and it will determine your eligibility for the different types of grants. All right. So then, step 2, do you see the word scholarship? If you do, this is also free money, but this is based on merit. Okay, it's awarded by the college itself. The federal government, FAFSA, does not have any scholarships. All they have is the Pell Grant. So if you see scholarship, remember, scholarship equals free money as well. Scholarship, merit, free money. Scholarships, like I said, awarded by the school. You do not have to pay them back. Sometimes it can be predetermined based on your academics. It could be based on a skill set you might have, whether it be fine arts, performing arts, athletics, that's leadership in the school. All these things are based on how scholarships are determined for students and what they're doing while they're in school. So these also could change year to year. All right, step 3, work study. Work study. Work study, the big thing we always say with work study, if you are eligible for work study, that money does not come off the tuition bill. Okay? Work study is from the federal government, and it's based on financial need, but it is not taken off the bill because one would not have to work on campus. You could be offered work study and you don't have to work. Also, if you say you get yourself a work study job, it's all on the student to find that job on campus. They'll have a work study job fair type of thing at the beginning of the school year. And then it's if they work those appropriate hours to say if it's $2,000, they'll break it down on a weekly basis, how much they would have to work, so on and so forth, to earn that money. And the student will receive a paycheck. With that paycheck, they can use a paycheck to buy books. They can use it to pay towards tuition, a tuition plan. They could use it to buy gum for the entire dorm. It is whatever they want to do with that money. So it's a nice kind of extra, but the reality of it, it will not come off the bill. Now, the other thing I like to say is, say you are interested in working on campus, but you are not eligible for work study. Every school has what they call student hourly. Student hourly is the same type of work on campus. It is just basically behind the scenes. The school is paying for your pay, as opposed to behind the scenes of work study. It's the federal government. But one would still seek those jobs out the same way. And if you do student hourly, you would just, seek out the jobs, get the job work. And like I said before, you can do whatever you want with that money. Step 4, do you see the words Federal Direct Stafford Loan? All right. Loans are monies that are paid back. A federal direct Stafford loan is money that the student borrows. It is in the student's name only. The student borrows and the student pays back with interest. So it is in just the student's name. This is the only loan for college universities that a student can get in only their name. Okay. And like I said, it is with zero cosigner. Currently, the interest rate for this current school year is 2.75%. Now, if you do see that federal direct Stafford loan, there could be two different parts of it. The first is called subsidized, okay? The student might be eligible for a subsidized loan. Subsidized means that while the student is in school at least half time, they do not have to pay on the loan. Also, that loan does not accrue any interest. As opposed to an unsubsidized loan, same thing, the student, no payments as long as that student's in school at least half time, but it does start accruing interest the day the student steps on campus. With both of these types of loans, the unsubsidized and the subsidized, there is a 6-month grace period before the students can start that repayment. Now, I do like to say though, subsidized loan, graduate from college, boom, wait 6 months to start paying off, you will have 6 months of interest. Okay, so the interest starts once you are done with school. Obviously, if you were to take time off from school longer than 6 months, you could start that repayment process, which could be, I think sometimes, unfortunately, for example, say a student went to school in the fall and then decided to take the spring off, spring semester off, that clock starts ticking in December, and it's 6 months from December until they have to start paying back the bill, the loan. What if so that means May, so you got basically another 4 months before you go back to college if you were going to start that next year. So something to be very, very aware of. Now, once they start back up, for at least half time, it would go back in and they would not have to pay on the loan. But just things to be very aware of if one was to stop going to school mid-year, like I know quite a few students have taken time off. All right, so talking about the different kinds of Stafford loans. Okay, so first, remember, this is in the student's name only. These are maximum amounts that a student might be eligible for. Okay, so your freshman year, the maximum of subsidized and or unsubsidized loans a student could get would be $3,500, possibly, with an additional $2,000. Now this gets, so a maximum is $5,500 a year, period. Now, the reason it gets a little confusing is I like to think of it like this. A college could say that freshman example we'll use, they could say you were eligible for an unsubsidized loan for $5,500. That's what it could say. Or it could say $3,500 subsidized and $2,000 unsubsidized, or a mix and match of it, but it could never be more than $3,500 subsidized. I know that can get somewhat confusing. So then the maximum amount a student can get the second year, sophomore year, is $6,500, and junior and senior year, $7,500. So a grand total, the max, if it all works out, that a student in their own name can take out from the federal government alone, a federal direct Stafford loan, is $27,000. If you have our Financial Aid Insider, there are some other breakdowns of how this works out on page 17, just to let you know. And if Heidi, if you need those, I can make sure those get to you as well. Okay. So actually, before we go to calculating the bottom line, Heidi, do we have any questions so far?
We do not have any questions in the chat.
Okay. All right. So calculating the bottom line. So let's take a look. This right here is a nice example of what a financial aid award package could look like. So what I like to do is I start, and you'll see on the right-hand side when we go through this, but so let's just take a look first at what the award looks like. So first, this specific example of institution, they gave a merit scholarship of $16,000. So $16,000 doesn't have to be paid back. A campus grant of $1,000 doesn't have to be paid back. It's a grant. Remember, big two words, grants and scholarships. A student scholarship of $2,000. Okay, and then it says a direct subsidized loan of $3,500. So remember, that's the one that does not accrue interest, subsidized, and a $2,000 unsubsidized loan that accrues interest. and work study as well, which comes out to $25,000, $25,500, excuse me. All right, so then we take a look at the tuition and fees. So 32,140, and room and board is 13,026. So we add those all together, those two, and that brings us to $45,166. So we say, hey, okay, what do we do with that? Let's click and see. So like I said, add those together, we get the 46,166 for room and board. All right, so now we're going to start. We're going to say, okay, we're going to subtract all grants first. So it was one grant for $1,000. Boom. Then we're going to subtract all scholarships. So there was 16,000 and 2,000. All right, and that then we're going to subtract, because if most students would take those federal loans, the 3,500 unsubsidized and the 2,000 subsidized. All right, so that brings us out to $20,666. Okay, so that's the amount that this family would have to finance or pay up front for 1 year of college. Okay, so, but remember, it actually would be more because you have, this is what this family would have to pay up front. But remember, when the loan comes through, the students also has that 5,500. So really for the year, it's going to cost that $26,166. Okay. So that can get kind of confusing. All right. So any questions on that part, actually, Heidi? Because that does get some questions sometimes.
No questions as of right now.
Okay, thanks. All right, so how do we manage those additional costs? Okay, first, well, a way you could pay towards the school is 529 plans. If you have those for college savings, you could use that. Obviously, cash or current income that one might have. Schools do have tuition payment plans, and I am a big proponent of tuition payment plans. And the reason I am is, in general, okay, so I know there are some specific examples that won't have them, but in general, tuition payment plans are for what you can afford to pay for school. So if you know that tuition, okay, so I'll make some numbers up here. So say you know school's going to cost $10,000, you have to come up with $10,000, and you can only afford $100 a month out of your pocket every month, so without taking out the loan. So you could do a tuition payment plan for $1,200 for the year. So they would subtract the $1,200 from the $10,000. Okay, so it brings it down to $8,800. But that $1,200, so you pay $100 a month, is all interest free. So I always say every little bit helps. So if it's $100 a month, that's $1,200 a year that you're not paying in a loan that's accruing interest, and that sort of thing. So always something to keep in mind. The other thing is the colleges, when it comes right down to it, they want their money. So you can mix and match how you get them the money. So it can be a tuition payment plan, some cash, a loan, and your child has some savings, and so on and so forth. However it will make it work, that's how you can make it work. All right. There are also what's called the Direct Plus loan. Now, the Direct Plus loan is from the federal government, okay? And the biggest thing I always like to tell parents is, in a plus loan, P stands for parent. It's a parent loan for undergraduate students. The loan will always, always, always be in the parent's name, and the parent's name only, for the duration of the loan, okay? As opposed to private loans can differently. For instance, Invest in You, which is New Hampshire's nonprofit lender, they're a private nonprofit lender. Because I'm a part of them, we have all different kinds of options for parents to look at. So that's a place one could look as well as many others throughout the country. But that's the private nonprofit New Hampshire lender. Ways you can help manage the costs. Look at the different schools, when you do those funding option meetings, or we have those funding option meetings, it's really breaking down and saying it's going to cost go to school X this amount to go to school Y, and this amount to go to school Z. And sometimes if you think about, you multiply those by 4, it can be very, very costly and very different in costs. When one's at school, you could consider doing work on at school, like be an RA, where the money you earn goes towards your room and board. So you might not have to pay for a room and board. You're just paying for tuition, and that's it. As well as the New Hampshire community colleges. If you're thinking about those or not sure, they're a great, great way to save money. And if you go to newhampshiretransfer.org, it's a nice, easy way that you can basically, the example I'll use is, every college has the equivalent of freshman English. Every college calls it something different. So you put in, okay, I decided to go to Great Bay, for example, and you put in what their freshman English class is called and the corresponding course number, and then you can see what that is for like a UNH or a Keene State or Plymouth and how it transfers over. So that's just the example I like to use for that. All right, any questions on that part before I start busting out the differences in the loans?
We have no questions so far.
Okay. All right, so as I said before, there's the PLUS loan from the federal government. All right, so remember, big thing to key on, the P stands for parent. All right, it is at a fixed interest rate. Last year's fixed interest rate was 5.3%. All right, it's in the parent's name, and you've now heard me say it about 4 or 5 times. P stands for parent. All right, there's different repayment options with that. It can be 10 to 30 years, and it can be deferred as long as the student is enrolled at least half time, just like the direct Stafford loans. There is what they call a 4.228 origination fee, and that is basically where you're being charged 4.288% to use the loan. There is no prepayment penalty, so you can pay that loan off early if you'd like, and get it over and done with without any sorts of penalties. And this, like the unsubsidized loans, these do accrue interest while in school, and there are different deferments and forbearance options available through the federal government. Now, that's compared to those private loans. The private loans, so a student private loan would be this. Well, they could be a variable rate or a fixed interest rate, okay? The way a private loan works, it's in what's called the student's name and a viable cosigner. So it can be anyone. It does not have to be the parent. It can be, the student and Uncle Joe, who takes care of, it could be anyone who what they consider a viable cosigner. So basically, and I'm going to back up a little bit. So for a PLUS loan, in a nutshell, the quick version, to be eligible for a PLUS loan, you can't be in foreclosure, you can't be in collections for more than $2,000, you can't have defaulted on your own student loans, and what was the last? I'm sorry, I'm in brain crack. And you can't have declared bankruptcy in the last 3 years. If none of those are applicable to you, you are guaranteed a PLUS loan no matter what. Now, when it comes to being what they call a viable cosigner, that person needs to be able to prove that they have make more than at least $30,000 a year and have a credit score of 675 or better. From that, what they'll do is they do a credit check and so on and so forth, and that's how they'll determine the interest rates for you and the different kinds of programs available for you. So could be the difference then too is the repayment. It could be it's 10 to 20 years for that private loans instead of the 10 to 30 for the PLUS loan. It may or may not be deferred. Like I said, every lender is a little bit different. But like I said, it could be deferred until the student, as long as that student is at least half time. They may or may not have origination fees. And they may or may not have those prepayment penalties, but they will start accruing interest once a student starts school, and they have different kinds of loan, limited deferment and forbearance options depending on the lenders. Things to think about or write down with this in the difference between the two. One, or if you're trying to choose between a private lender and the federal plus loan, big things. Plus loan has an origination fee. So when looking at a private lender, see if there's an origination fee. Plus loan, as you heard me say before, always in the parent's name. Okay. A private lender, one would want to look and see if they have what's called a cosigner release. All right. A cosigner release. And basically, and like I said, every lender has different options. Basically, that means if the family, so say, you and your child take out the loan together, and you're making your payments, and a cosigner release basically will say something to the effect of, and I'm using strictly example, it could be, if you were never late for a payment or never miss a payment within the first 5 years of the loan, the cosigner comes off the loan, and then it's just in the student's name. So things I always say to ask for is that, see if there's that cosigner release. Okay, so any questions, Heidi?
There are no questions so far.
Okay, thanks. All right. So, oops, sorry, go back one minute. So what if you don't qualify for loans? All right, so here it gets a little tricky. So if parents do not qualify for a plus loan, there are two options. You may only choose one of these. So think about this. There are two options, but you can only choose one. So the parent can get an endorser and sign and act as the co-signer for the parent. So the parent gets an endorser to be the co-signer for them. Okay, so imagine it was me. I'd get, me, the parent, I get my Uncle Joe or my cousin Joe to sign as an endorser for me. Okay, or the student can qualify for an additional direct federal student loan. All right, so the student could have it be all in their name, but it's only $4,000 for the first and second years of undergraduate study, and then the remaining years it's $5,000. All right. If a parent is not creditworthy, a creditworthy cosigner for a private loan, or other families, like I said before, you could have somebody else be that viable cosigner. All right. So just things to think about when we're talking monies. I like to look at this, but you can also see how things can change drastically, as I said before, when looking at different schools. So think of it like this. In scenario one, if you take out $5,000, okay, and you need to borrow 5, so 5 times 4 is $20,000 for 4 years, and your monthly payment is $168 for 15 years. Remember, this is 1 year of school. Well, you say to yourself, hey, well, $10,000 more than that, so $15,000. It's not that much more. Well, now over 4 years, that's $60,000 and $504 a month payment for 1 year of school. Remember, this is for 1 year of school, and so on and so forth. So you can see, imagine 25,000 times 4 years. Okay, so $100,000. This is for 1 year of school. That's $840 a month. And then every year, like next year when I'm doing this, these numbers in this column over here could be different, because that $25,000 you took out the next year because of inflation, you might have to take out 26, 27. So I always think these numbers can add up quickly. College is a multi-year investment. Remember, it's not only 1 year. Traditional schools, you think a community college is 2 years. 4-year college and university, obviously it's 4 years. So please think about that when looking at schools. I hope I didn't scare anyone with that one. All right, so here's some general questions that I'll answer that we put together. All right, so the first one, do I have to pay my admissions deposit before I return my award? And the answer, quite frankly, is no. um, because think of it like this: you're going to get, say, I get accepted to 4 colleges, I'll get 4 different award packages. Whichever school I decide to go to is the one I accept. Um, you know, sometimes or often you'll see you can accept, and you can accept if you want. It's kind of, but you do not have to. So you can say to yourself, because sometimes, for instance, I've seen financial aid award packages where they automatically offer um, the plus loan to the parents. Well, the parent might want to get a better interest rate with a loan from Invest in You, so don't automatically click on accept. And you can always go back and change it, but that sort of thing. So you do not have to um, pay your admissions deposit before you return that award. All right. When do I receive my bill from college? Okay. So when you get those financial aid award packages, they're just estimates. You're not going to receive a bill, honestly, until June. And that's when, and then the bill will be due like in July. So most schools in general, you'll receive that bill in June. All right. So what can I expect in terms of financial aid in future years? So I look at, like, unless things change drastically in your family life, and unless you as the student try to look for different scholarships and so on and so forth at the schools, it should stay relatively the same. Because if you have a job where you don't get a raise, get a cost of living increase, it will just raise every year, that sort of thing. Things pretty much will stay the same. But if honestly, if you win mega bucks, it's going to change drastically. um, so but in general, the same. But remember, you do have to file the FAFSA every year, and so on and so forth. And if you're taking out loans, take out loans every year. And remember, one of the things I don't think I keyed on is it's a single year thing. So each year you could have a different setup of how you pay for school. So one year could be all through private loans. One year it could be half through a private, half with one parent, and half through a plus with the other. One year it could be all in cash. Who knows? All right. So, can I borrow for more than the direct costs of schools for things like a computer supplies and so on and so forth? Things like books? Absolutely. The way the schools, and every school is a little bit different how they do it, but they do let you take out a little bit more money for supplies, basically. Absolutely. So, for instance, I'll use a made up number. If school's going to cost $10,000, you quite possibly could take out a loan for 11. They will not, so you can buy books and that sort of thing, and computer, or 12. They're not going to let you take out, if the school costs $10,000, a $500,000, so you can get a plane to go back and forth from school. All right. Can I negotiate my financial aid award for a better offer? All right. So this is a touchy question for a lot of financial aid officers and school counselors, honestly, and myself. The way I look at it is this. In general, the financial aid award package that you receive from the school will be the best thing they're going to offer you. Now, that means, in my mind, if you get a really good financial aid award package, a really good one, it will be a total insult to the school to say, hey, can you give me some more money? Especially, I'll use the example. I had a kid the other day who his school, that one of the schools, it was like a $70,000 school. And when it came down to it, with all the scholarships and grants and so on and so forth that he got, school was going to cost him 17. If he had come to the school and said, hey, can you give me some more money? They would have laughed and felt insulted. Now, that same example, that $70,000, if they say, hey, we'll give you 500, well, to me, I turn it around a little. That's kind of insulting to me. I mean, they literally think that I can pay, 65, 69, 9. Yeah. So that's kind of how I look at those things. But in general, financial aid officers do find it insulting if you come back to them. And also with that, if you decide to do that, be realistic. They might say, okay, you're right. Now, instead of giving you that $500, Matt, we'll give you another grant for 500, so it's 1,000. They're not going to say all of a sudden, Matt, we went from 70,000 to 20. They won't do that over. So usually, most of the times, the package they put together is the best package that they possibly can. All right. Next question. If I receive private scholarships, how does this affect my financial aid package? This sometimes can get kind of tricky. It's on a school by school basis. The one thing I will say is the schools don't want you making money off it. Okay, so if school costs, say, $10,000 for my made up example, and you receive $5,000 in grants and scholarships from the school, and then your high school and some outside private ones gives you, say, the private ones around there, say, give you $10,000 in scholarships. The college is going to say, hey, we're not giving you $5,000 back. They're just going to say, we gave you 5,000. Give us, they'll basically either put that money in and you'll pay nothing, okay? Or I'm not doing a good job, I'm sorry, explain. Or they could do a number of different things. So honestly, what I had a parent I talked to last year who this actually happened, that the school had said, you can only receive X amount of money in scholarship. And she got nice scholarships from the school, the college, and then her high school and the private ones gave her over that amount. And what the mother did was they turned down some of the private scholarships because it would not matter to the school, okay, the college. So they were like, okay, if 5,000 is the max we can get, and the college is giving us 4,000, and the private ones gave us 1,500. We're going to take We're going to take 1,000 and put that 500 back, so her classmates could get that. So it does get tricky, and if I would say if those are one of the things that is happening to you, it could happen to you, you the student, check with the college, okay? Because you don't want that. I mean, personally, I would want my friends to get that money instead of it just go to the school and go to some fund. Okay. Other things, ways to find monies. One of the ones that is an excellent one is the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. So I key on this as well, nchf.org. New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, basically, it's a scholarship program of over, goodness gracious, 450-ish different New Hampshire scholarships. So what happens is this. You fill out the application, you send it off to them, and they will automatically apply you to whatever scholarships are applicable to you. So it's an easy way to get your name out there and apply for a bunch of different scholarships at once. Big things to remember with that is the deadline for a 4-year school is April 16th at 5 o'clock promptly. They will not take them at 5:01. Great thing also about last year, the average award was $4,600 on average. And about 1 in 3 students got that. So bang for your buck, that's a pretty good program to apply to get scholarships. Excuse me. If you're thinking about career aid, community colleges, technical programs, and that sort of thing, the average award is between $250 and $500. The big difference on that is the deadline is really like mid-June. They didn't even really give us a deadline. Last year was mid-June. But I highly, highly, highly recommend to all students to apply into the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation Scholarship. Honestly, it's going to take you about 2 hours to do it. Fill out the application. I still kick myself now that I've found things out now that I didn't know back then when I was a school counselor and a director. They have found that 90% of the students who do not finish the application, who started, do not finish because of this. They get to the essay and they stop and they don't finish. And I think to myself, I'm like, all right, man. When I used to hound my students at my old school, they'd say, all right, Mr. Zare, I got you. And they start doing it on their phone. And then they get to the essay and save and forget about it. So please just take the 2 hours, do it at home. The other thing with that is there is an essay question. It's basically this, and these are my own words, okay? 500 words or less, one of two. What do you want to study in school, or what do you want to do after you graduate from college? Okay, 500 words or less. So that's a little helpful hint. And please just take the time. I mean, I look at it like this: $4,600 to work 2 hours. That's some really good pay. Okay. Any questions at all from anyone? That kind of wraps everything up.
We don't have any questions.
Okay. Well, let's just move on slightly. So we can always be reached at 888-747-2382, extension 119. Like I said, my name is Matt Azzaro, and excuse me, I am the college outreach specialist who works with Sanborn. So please, I like to say, use me as much as you want. I love working with families. I love working with schools. I love working with kids. So please do not hesitate to ask for help. And that's all. And if there's no other questions, everyone have a great night and stay safe. It's getting warmer, which is great. Thank you again for having me.
And again, I want to thank Matt for being here for us for tonight and giving us all this great information. As a parent of 3 college age children, 2 have graduated and are now in that paying student loan mode. And the youngest learned from the older 2 who went to private colleges, and he saw what they were going to be paying, and now he's going to a state school. Definitely put those award letters in front of you, map it out, see which one's going to make the most sense for you and your family. Look at what your child might make in their career. Being a first year teacher is very different than being a first year engineer. So make your decisions wisely when you're looking at how much money they might make and how much money they're going to have to pay for that education. If you have any questions, reach out to us here at the school. But what we're probably going to do is give you Matt's phone number because, as we said, he's the expert. He's the one who knows all the tricks of the trade, and he's going to help you navigate those difficult conversations within your family as well as with the colleges if your financial situation changes. So, again, thank you, and we hope you all have a good night.